Okay, so you're seeing the Tunnel of Doom. This is Graydon, Gamebox Video Games and Comics. Talking about Dungeon Combat League stuff coming up, and also going over a little bit of some kind of little bit of guidance and some how-to stuff on how to maybe think about making a character for a competitive Dungeons and Dragons event. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up D&D Beyond. I know a lot of you people are using that for a lot of character creation and stuff like that. You've purchased some digital books on there. It gives you access to some stuff and stuff like that. We're going to be using the player's handbook today as kind of the way to help you go through setting up a character and a couple of the other tools and resources that I'm going to go over just to kind of how to get the right information into your character sheet. So what we'll start with here is we're going to start with building a character. Again, this is a 4th level character using only the player's handbook. You're not allowed to use any other supplements, so that's something really important to note. And that we're going to be using a points buy system for ability scores. So we're going to use D&D Beyond, which is a great way to kind of walk through the process for how I would build a character, maybe potentially for this and the kinds of things that I would kind of keep an eye out for as to what I would want to try to plan for in a kind of competitive style dungeon. So let's build a character right now. We're going to use standard because there's some stuff in here that we're going to be able to alter. That's going to make it so that way we can actually do this the way that we want to do. Mostly it has to do with points buy and how and how hit points work. So some stuff that you're going to want to turn off. You're going to turn off homebrew content, magic, and Eberron. We're not going to be using any of that. We're going to call this guy Fogoth. So your advancement type for experience is milestone. I'm just going to be giving out a level at the end of the season. We'll talk about that more later. Hit points, you're going to want to go manual so that way we can actually max them out. You are using feats, really important thing, and multi-class requirements are a real thing. As far as encumbrance is concerned, variant encumbrance, as it's been listed on the Gamebox Dungeon Combat League website. So that way there is kind of important. Ignoring coin weight, we're going to ignore that because most of you shouldn't be carrying your money while you're in the dungeon, but you can. And the rest of this stuff doesn't matter. You can put your character to private if you want to, or public. It doesn't matter one way or the other. I'm still going to require physical character sheets to be able to make this happen. So let's go to the next section. Again, so you're going to want to make sure you're only using the right stuff. So where it says choose race, filter race sources, let's go to player's handbook. And then we have the basic races here available to us, the Dragonborn, Dwarf, Elf, and so on. So my concept is that I want to make a kind of sneaky but also kind of sturdy kind of thief, rogue, maybe to go and do some of the challenge stuff that might be in the dungeons, such as breaking into rooms, getting an item at the end of maybe like a trap corridor or something like that. So normally people like to pick like elves or gnomes, half elves, or even halflings is kind of like their default rogue. I'm gonna go with a dwarf. For one, I think that it could be interesting to try to work around a little bit of a handicap. But for two, they are going to be a little bit more burly as far as that's concerned. So, and we're gonna pick a mountain dwarf. +2 Constitution's pretty good. Stone cutting isn't going to really come into play. Dwarven combat training might. Not super positive on that. Resilience definitely will. So those will be things that are really helpful. So we're going to get +2 to our con. Don't care about age. Alignment. You're going to care about that a little bit. Mostly because of the fact that if you're saying you're going to go and do something heinous to another player character, even though you're fighting them, I might call you out on it, but try to keep alignment in mind. Size is always important, especially when we're going to be doing stuff on a grid. Speed, that dark visions, like a lot of these things are kind of important. Just basic bookkeeping stuff. Dwarven resilience is going to be pretty helpful here. I think that saving throws against poison and poison damage, bonuses to advantage on that is going to be probably pretty neat, especially since I'm going to send this dwarf down some trap areas. So You never know. It could be just a spike trap. It could be a poison trap, or other characters could, later on be using poisons and things like that. So that's important. Battle axes and hammers and stuff like that. I'm probably gonna try. I might do a hand axe. A rogue that does sneak attack with a hand axe might be kind of fun. Tool proficiency could come into play, as far as like maybe trying to find a way to bust through a door. If you've failed your lock picking checks a bunch of times, and inside of your 45-second action while you've been thinking about it, you come up with an idea of like you want to just take the door off of its hinges by removing the hinges. Right there could be an interesting thing. So a lot of these other things are kind of just bookkeeping stuff. So we're gonna take that. Let's see. We've got a little dialogue here saying tool proficiency. So I am going to choose Mason's tools, so that way my character has masonry, stone masonry, things like that. It would be much more interesting to have tools for that, to be able to make it so that way they don't they get proficiency or advantage on a check when it comes to like getting through a wall or something. All right, so class, like I said, we've chosen a rogue is what we're going to be doing. Dex is the primary stat. Dwarves are strength and constitution based, so we're going to have to be pumping some points in dexterity to make that work. Intelligence is a save. I don't know if we're going to be doing a lot with that, but we might. And we'll pick up expertise and sneak attack and everything like that. So there's a lot here. At, let's see, 4th level ability scores are great. Roguish archetype. There's a couple that we could use. We'll take a look at the player's handbook here in a little bit, and we'll get that idea. So we're going to click on level, and we're going to go to 4. Okay? Because you're all level 4 characters. So we're going to start picking that stuff out. Now, it's always a little weird that it asks you and beyond to pick your class and your class abilities before you pick your ability scores. It's kind of backwards in my mind, but it works for them. So proficiency, we're going to take the stuff that we need to take. We're going to take stealth. We're going to take sleight of hand. We're going to take perception. And we're going to take acrobatics so we can get past traps. Expertise. We're going to get expertise in sleight of hand. And we're going to get expertise in perception. We don't want to die to the trap rooms. We're going to try to go down. Sneak attack is good. Thieves can't. Probably won't do too much of that. Like, that's not really a thing that's going to happen in the dungeon. Unless you want to, like, buddy up with somebody from one thing and, like, leave some notes from or something like that. Weird. You could have some fun with it. But it's not really going to get used a lot. The cunning actions are all going to be really good. There's tons of stuff like being able to disengage or dash and things like that as bonus actions. That's really huge. Our archetype. Let's see. So we got a few. We got arcane, trickster, assassin, and thief. So we've already said that we're going to go pretty deep down the thief road. Let's go back over here. Classes. Rogue. Okay. Whoa, okay. So let's take a look here. See if it actually brings up our roguish archetypes. So thief, 3rd level. We're gonna get, let's see, bonus action graded by cunning action to make a dexterity check. Use thieves' tools to disarm a trap or a lock, or take the use object option. That's awesome. That right there is going to make it so that way we can, be kind of like in that combat situation. We can be behind somebody trying to open a door that's defending us, and then we can get the door open and we can just kind of pop in. Like, we can run up to the door and open it up in one action. That right there could be really, really useful. Second story work, climbing faster than normal. That could be useful if we actually get into like an outdoor situation, or if there's a room with high walls, or like even like a second story of just like an encounter room, that might be an option. Or just if you want to climb up on top of something, any time that you know you're going to get a bonus to some sort of variant of movement, that's going to be really handy. So those are both really good abilities to be able to make use of. So that would be good. So we've got that. So the choice of an ability score improvement or a feat. Now, there's two ways to go with this. The ability score improvement could help fix a deficit in another stat, but we're going to be having averages of 315s and 39s if you do the points by system, which is what we're doing. If you're going to like min-max the hell out of your character, that's one way of doing it. I like using feats instead. I think that feats give you a lot more options. So I'm going to choose taking a feat. And then we're going to go over some of the ideas of some feats that would be really useful to use for this character. But we're going to we'll go look at the feats right now. Let's see. Let's see. So, let's see. Kind of want to do something with being able to get out of the way. Defensive duelist could be interesting and make it so really hard to hit the thief. I'd have to not use a hand axe. I'd have to end up buying like a dagger or a rapier or something like that. And I'd get like a +2 bonus to my armor class as a reaction. So that right there could be pretty good. Let's take a look. Dungeon Delver. That's an obvious one. Being alert to traps. Advantage on wisdom and intelligence checks. Okay, no, this is where we're at. Advantage on wisdom perception checks and intelligence investigation checks made to detect the presence of secret doors. Advantage on saving throws made to avoid or resist traps. This is massive. Like, if we're building this character with the idea of like combat's kind of a secondary and just getting through like all the challenge rooms is the major thing, then there is going to be huge. Resistance to damage dealt by traps is awesome. Taking half damage on the traps is going to be huge. And traveling at a fast pace doesn't impose a normal -5 penalty on passive wisdom perception scores. So passive perception is a thing that will end up getting used because of the fact that like if you're actively searching for traps to be able to go through like a trap room or a trap encounter room, that's one thing. If you end up like kind of just running into the room to try to get away from someone, your passive perception score is going to be the big deciding factor on whether or not you notice the fact that you're going to drop into a spike pit. So I don't think we need to go too much further. I think Dungeon Delver for the Mason Dwarf Thief is pretty in flavor, so we're going to go with that. So let's take Dungeon Delver. Okay. And it gives a good explanation right there. That's awesome. So now this is where things get a little bit weird. So it has these generation methods up here on the top of underneath the ability scores. We're going to go to the manual system because we're going to be using the points by system with 30 points instead of 27. So if you see, it shows normally 27 for the standard points by system for 5e. I don't like that for this because we're going to be a little bit more heroic. And just imagine people are kind of like watching through scrying pools and seeing this kind of like a game show. So let's make it a little bit more crazy. So we're going to go to manual there, and then we're going to go back to this right here. It's called the 5e point buy calculator. It's a good tool for you guys to use when you're going to be doing this. So you have 30 points and there's no cap or minimum on ability scores to do this. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to custom rules, and leave the minimum purchasable to 8, maximum to 18, and available points to 30, okay? And then go back into the calculator, and now you can actually start selecting your stuff. So I'm going to select my dwarf. It's going to show these increases over here on this section where it says total score. Those are your bonuses, so you're automatically going to get that, and then your sub race was Mountain Dwarf. So you're going to get a bonus to strengthen the con. So remember, this is not necessarily meant to be a 100% narrative system for you guys to be playing in. This is supposed to be a competitive system. So this is where you can really kind of do some kind of shady stuff. And just, do the things that you wouldn't normally do for a role-playing character. This is going to be, a character that's a survivalist that is, kind of live their life to basically go out and join this really cool kind of competitive circuit that all these other people that they know have done. So that's why we're doing it this way. So let's start throwing in some stats. So we need to have a good dex. So let's bring that up to maybe, let's see, our ability score modifiers. We get one at 16. So that's pretty good. We're going to bump up the constitution. We want to get to a 14. So we get that +2 for those 4 levels of hit points. So there's another 8 hit points to our character, which is going to be pretty huge. As a thief, or a rogue, you're not going to have a lot anyway, so that's kind of a detriment. Let's get these modifiers here up a little higher. I'm going to leave them at a -1 charisma, just because I think that'd be kind of fun to have something that's a little bit crappy. We're going to bump up his wisdom. We want to get a +2 modifier there, so that's important, because we don't want him to kind of get the short end of the stick when trying to go through stuff. And let's go back over to our player's handbook stuff here real quick and just double check something. So we're going to look at skills. Here we go. So wisdom is animal handling, insight, business, and perception is survival. Dexterity is going to be your sleight of hand, stealth. Yeah, it looks like perception is huge. Investigation could be good, but we didn't take that as a class skill, so we don't really care about that. So we're going to go back into our points by calculator. We've got 4 points left. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, if we're going to go hand axes, we can't really not have a strength modifier because it's not a finesse weapon, it's a melee weapon. It's a smacking weapon, although we could just go with some sort of finesse weapon and just use that right there for bonuses to damage and stuff. So that might be the way to go, but I kind of like having a strength. So we've got these stats: a 12, a 16, a 12, a 10, a 4, and a 9. Those are the core stats that we're going to drop into our character sheet. So 12, 16, 12, 10, 14, and 9. Okay. So this should... Yep. Racial modifiers are built in. We should be good to go. So that's our stats. So backgrounds are kind of cool. You get some kit from them. It doesn't really matter too much. This whole background section for description is kind of like for you to flesh out your character a little bit for some stuff. You can get some additional gear sometimes, but we're not using that system, so that's not a big deal. So we're going to look at starting equipment. So currency, we're going to make sure we have our 200 gold. We're going to add that in. And then we're going to go, let's see. So we have that. We're going to look at our character right now. So we got a 12 passive perception, or passive wisdom for insight over here, and we have a 16 for passive perception, which is huge as a character that's trying to go into an area and just, like, you know, mash the dungeon. So that's really, really good. So this is just kind of an idea of, like, how you can kind of tool this out. I need to obviously do some work here and fix some stuff in the character sheet that didn't get done, so we're going to manage our hit points. So we have a D8 for hit die, and we've got 4 levels, so we're going to have 32 hit points, and we're just going to put it in there as 30 as a rolled 32. Okay, that right there, it gives us the proper amount of hit points. Gear. So we'll add items. Well, starting equipment. Don't we have like a... No, we have rogue equipment. So maybe we'll just do that anyway. So we could go that way. We're going to go short sword. Short bow. Dungeoneer's pack. We're not going to take the pack. Okay, I'm going to add that. Let's take a look at our character sheet now. So we're going to go over a lot of character stuff also in the first session, just because of the fact that there's a lot of data that go over for people. Mostly the goal here is to kind of get you guys just kind of seeing, you know, what it looks like to think about building a character for this. You don't need to think too much about roleplay. Roleplay is important, and it's huge for D&D. But this is going to be mostly, you know, just kind of like navigating the, you know, world is trying to kill you. I think that what we got here with just the short sword is pretty good. Like, if we go and look at, you know, we get +5 to hit, d6 +3 damage, and it can be finesse, so that's huge. Are we using it finesse? It doesn't look like we are. Huh. Guess we are. Yeah, whatever. Still good stuff. Yeah, so it looks like... Man, I haven't done... They've done a bunch of updates. Looks like we're good. So just kind of an idea. You know, we'll talk a little more the closer we get to the event. Obviously, ask questions on Facebook, ask questions online. Just let us know. This is Graydon, and I will see you guys Friday. Bye.